This is college football and stuff. It's week 2 of the college football season. We got the ACC and the Big 12 playing their first games this week. I got my notes, and let's get into the games. Alright, so we got a lot of games this week, so I'm not going to go into huge detail on all of them. I'm going to cover everything and try to focus on the games that I think are the most interesting matchups, are going to be the best games to watch. So starting it all off, Thursday, September 10th, we have UAB at Miami at 8 p.m. on the ACC network. So Miami, one of those teams that hasn't been great but hasn't been terrible. They've looked like they could maybe get things together. They've had a really good defense. Manny Diaz doing a great job over there as far as the defensive side of the ball goes, but haven't been able to get over the hump, it seems like. Have lost some games they really shouldn't have lost, and just sort of had some sloppy play there. Miami is a 14.5 point favorite over UAB. UAB had an okay game last week. They won. We'll see if that makes any difference as far as them having one game under their belt already. Not as good of a performance as I would have liked to have seen out of UAB, though. 14.5 points is a decent number of points, but again, Miami has a good defense. I think if I had to do it, I would pick them to cover. I definitely think Miami's going to win that game. We'll see how well they do, if they've managed to sort of turn that corner and get to where that program probably really needs to be. We'll see, but I think I have them covering on that game. So I have them winning by at least 14.5. All right, going on to Saturday, the 12th. We start off Arkansas State at Kansas State. So Arkansas State looked pretty good against Memphis last week. I think they played a lot better than a lot of people thought they would. Memphis has been a really high-scoring team and has done really well for their conference. And I think Arkansas State kept it a lot closer than people thought they would. Kansas State, one of those sort of interesting teams, went 8-4 overall last year, 5-4 in the Big 12. Big wins, though, against Oklahoma and Mississippi State. So beat the best team in the Big 12, Oklahoma's only loss, and beat an SEC team last year. Kansas State is only a 10.5 point favorite in this game. And I really think that's a little bit low. They're playing at 12 in the morning on Fox. It's an early game, so we'll see if maybe Kansas State isn't up, if they have a slow start to this game. I think Kansas State wins. I think they win by more than 10.5. Next, also at 12 on ESPN2, Charlotte at App State. App State, one of those lower division teams that people always talk about because of that big win over Michigan years and years ago. But a decent team. Not a bad team for their division. Charlotte, not a great team, lower classification school. App State should win that. They're a 17-point favorite. I think they win by 17 easy. I think that's an easy cover there. Eastern Kentucky at West Virginia, also at 12. This on Fox Sports 1. Didn't see a line on this game. I think it's pretty easy to call West Virginia as the winner there. Eastern Kentucky, not a great team. West Virginia has sort of struggled these past couple of years since they switched coaches. 5-7, 3-6 in conference last year. So not really a great season for them. I do think they get a win here on their first game, though. Then also at 12, Louisiana Lafayette at Iowa State. That's on ESPN, so that's probably your main game, that time slot. Iowa State, one of those teams that people had really high hopes for, and then went 7-5, 5-4 in the Big 12 last year. Really kind of a down year for them. And that's amazing sort of to say that about Iowa State, but really people have come to the point where they're expecting them to win 9 or 10 games a year because they had some really good seasons. They've got a good coach. He's doing a really good job with that program. They are an 11.5-point favorite. I think they win. I think they cover. I think that's another pretty easy cover there. 11.5 points, not a lot of points. Louisiana Lafayette, not a terrible team, but definitely not on the same level as Iowa State. I would pick them to cover. Next up, our first ACC versus ACC matchup. Syracuse at North Carolina. 12 o'clock on the ACC network. I will definitely be watching this game. I was really looking forward to seeing North Carolina and Auburn play. Really sad that game ended up getting canceled. North Carolina is a team that has had a bunch of hype around them in the offseason. So came real close to winning some games last year, came real close to losing a lot of games last year. So played a lot of close games. Went 6-6 overall, 4-4 in the ACC. Syracuse, a team that sort of had a down year, really like their coach, Dino Babers, think he does a great job. They went 5-7 and 2-6 in the ACC last year, so really did not have a good year, a lot worse than people thought they were going to be. But North Carolina's a 22-point favorite in this game. And I really just think that's too many points. I think maybe that's built off of how much hype they had. And we'll see. Maybe they'll be as good as people were expecting them to be. But with a number of close games that they played last year, not a lot of blowout wins, I really have trouble saying that they're going to win by 22 points. I think North Carolina wins this game. I'm not going to pick Syracuse to win. But I really, really do not think North Carolina covers with the 22 points. I don't think they get that big of a win. 12:30 on CBS Sports Network. We have Louisiana Monroe at Army. We saw Army get a great win last week. Shutout, 42 points, I think. They are a 21-point favorite over Louisiana Monroe. I think that's a fairly safe cover there. Louisiana Monroe, again, not a terrible team, but I think Army has looked good. They're a team that makes it tough for other teams to score points, and they have a tough offense to stop, especially if you haven't prepared well to face them. I like Army with the 21 points there. Duke at Notre Dame. So that's another interesting game, another nice ACC versus ACC matchup, of course, with Notre Dame being officially in the ACC this year. 2:30 on NBC. Notre Dame, the number 10 team in the country, went 10-2 last year. Duke, one of those teams that have a good coach. They usually get some wins or play a little bit better than people expect them to, but they're not going to be winning the ACC, not going to be going to the playoffs. They're just where they are as a program, they're never going to be up there with some of those really good teams. But they're always going to play a little bit better than people expect them to, I think, and they're going to play better than really probably their overall talent level says that they should. Notre Dame is a 20-point favorite in this game. I think they're going to cover that. Having said all that nice stuff about Duke, I still think Notre Dame is going to cover. So Notre Dame, good team. Last year, Duke opened up against Alabama. Alabama blew them out. I think they won by 39. I think it was like 42-3 was that game. Now, Notre Dame is not as good as Alabama, but Notre Dame and Duke also played last year, and Notre Dame won by 31 last year. Now, that's an extra 11 points over what they're favored this year. I think Notre Dame can easily win by 3 touchdowns. I would take Notre Dame with the points over Duke, but I think that'll be a good game to watch. if nothing else, then it's an opportunity, your first opportunity really to see one of these top 10 teams play this year. Next at 3:30 on ESPNU, we have Campbell at Georgia Southern. I think Georgia Southern wins that game. If you're a fan of either of these teams, watch that game. Otherwise, I don't know if there's a whole lot of point to watching it. Georgia Southern played some nice games last year. Is a decent team, but I don't think that's going to be a super exciting game. I think Georgia Southern wins that game, and it'll be pretty uneventful. Georgia Tech at Florida State. This will be an interesting game to watch. This is the 3:30 game I'm going to be watching. So on ABC at 3:30, Georgia Tech at Florida State. Florida State a 12.5-point favorite. Now both of these teams are in a rebuild period. Georgia Tech coming from the triple option and trying to go into more of a traditional offense. Florida State, of course, still in a rebuild after Jimbo Fisher and then, the guy, his name I can't remember, who moved over from Oregon, Willie Taggart. Jimbo Fisher left that place in shambles, and then Willie Taggart just made it worse somehow. I think Florida State is going to get better. We'll see. I think they need a little bit more time than just this year. Georgia Tech also needs some recruiting classes to get the type of players that you need to run a traditional offense over a triple option offense. So this, I think, will be a good game to watch. It'll be close. I think Florida State wins, but I don't think it's a clean win. I don't think that it's a blowout win or a decisive win. I have a lot of trouble giving Florida State 12.5 points there. So I think they win, but I don't think they cover. Then it's UTSA at Texas State, the last game at this 3:30 time slot. That's on ESPN2. Texas State, an 8-point favorite, and they're coming off that really close game with SMU. They had that fumble that I thought was an SMU fumble that they should have recovered, that they didn't review. The game was tied 21-21. SMU hit a big touchdown pass the very next play, and Texas State could never get back into it. I think that was kind of a crushing blow for them to both lose that, what they thought was a clear recovery, and then get scored on the next play. SMU was a big favorite in that game. Texas State was not supposed to keep it that close. Interesting thing, so the spread here favors Texas State. ESPN's FPI has University of Texas San Antonio as the favorite in this game. It's a close game as far as the FPI goes. 8 points is a fairly close game, especially at home. As far as the point spread goes, I have trouble picking on this one. I think Texas State is going to win it. I do not feel confident picking against the spread here. So I'm going to say that they win but don't cover, but I'm very hesitant on that game. Next up, we have Austin Peay at Pitt. Austin Peay got to play a game last week. Don't think that'll really matter here. Pitt is going to win this game. I didn't even see a spread on it. That's 4 o'clock on the ACC network. Again, if you're a fan of Pitt, watch this game. If you've got nothing else you want to watch, if these 3:30 games aren't interesting to you and you want to throw that on, go ahead. I think that's going to be an easy win for Pitt, though. Citadel at South Florida. South Florida, a team that's had good seasons, been just mediocre, sort of been overshadowed now by UCF, Memphis, the Florida International and Florida Atlantic teams were sort of taking a spotlight from them. I think South Florida wins this game easy, though. Citadel is not a great team. There didn't see a spread on this. Think that's going to be an easy win for South Florida. That's 7 o'clock on ESPNU. All right, also at 7, Missouri State at Oklahoma. This is a pay-per-view game, which I think is a little weird, and I hope I don't see a bunch of that. I won't be able to watch this game because I'm not going to be buying it on pay-per-view. Of course, Oklahoma is going to win this game. Didn't see a spread on it. Missouri State is not going to be beating Oklahoma. It's probably not going to be keeping it anywhere near competitive with Oklahoma. Again, last year, Oklahoma's only lost to Kansas State. Went 12-1 overall, 8-1 in conference. I would like to watch this game just because I know Oklahoma's going to be a top 10 team again this year. You can sort of bet they're going to have an amazing offense. It'll be interesting to see Spencer Rattler coming out there. The first time we've had a quarterback at Oklahoma in a few years who's been the starter and a guy that was recruited there. That won't be able to watch it though, so we'll see. But yeah, Oklahoma, easy win there, easy win. 7:30, Clemson at Wake Forest. This is definitely a game I'm going to be watching. Clemson, of course, is going to win this game. There's no question about that. Probably the best team, if not the best, the second best. It's either them or Alabama is the best team, at least preseason goes, at least right now. If you have any other team that's playing, Ohio State, as your 1 or 2, you're just wrong. I'm sorry. Either Clemson or Alabama is the best team. Wake Forest is an interesting team to watch. I think that it'll be fun to watch this game. So Wake Forest does this thing they call the slow mesh. If you want to look up some highlights of their games last year, you can see it. It's an RPO thing where the quarterback, when they get to the mesh point with the running back, instead of it being a quick where he either hands it off or pulls it back and throws it or pulls it back and runs with the running back for a little bit, and then so for half a second, a few seconds, stays with him, holding the ball, and reads the defense. And it makes it really tough for the defense to follow because the safeties want to crash down, the linebackers want to crash in because they see the quarterback and the running back there and they think it's going to be a running play. And then so he can do a late pullback and throw the ball. Or he can hand it off, and then you sort of have the quarterback there as an extra blocker because he's in the way of guys rushing in on the edges. So it's really a very different kind of RPO system. So they're a very interesting team to watch just for that. Now, I don't think it's going to matter at all in this game. Wake Forest could do anything they wanted to on offense, and it's not going to matter against Clemson. Clemson is just too good of a team. Clemson is a 33-point favorite, and I think they cover. I have trouble giving any team that many points, but Clemson is going to score a ton of points in pretty much every game this year. The only team that is really going to compete with them at all, I think, in the ACC is going to be Notre Dame, and I think Clemson is better than Notre Dame. So I would take Clemson with the 33 points. I think they cover. That's 7:30 on ABC. Also at 7:30 on ESPN2, we have Tulane at South Alabama. South Alabama, of course, got that really big win for them last week. Huge win for South Alabama. I think their first road win in 3 years over Southern Miss now. Such a big win that Southern Miss's coach actually quit this week. So I think South Alabama maybe a little bit better than people thought they were going to be. Tulane also had a pretty good season last year. Played a close game with Auburn, played some close games, had some good wins, went 6-6 in conference, 3-5 overall. Really probably not as good of a season as they wanted to have, or as people thought they had maybe early on in the year. Tulane, an 8-point favorite here. And I think they win, and I think they cover. And I think part of that is I think South Alabama might have a little bit of an emotional letdown after that big win. And I can see Tulane coming in and sort of upsetting the party a little bit. But yeah, I have Tulane winning that. I have them covering the 8 points. UTEP at Texas on 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock on the Longhorn Network. Texas, a 43-point favorite here. And that's interesting. So UTEP, if you watched last week's video, not a good team, had only one win last year against an FCS team, and it looks like they probably got their one win this year over Stephen F. Austin, an FCS team, which kept it pretty close with them most of the game. Of course, UTEP ended up pulling away at the end there, but that was a really close game. Looked like Stephen F. Austin was actually leading that game for most of the first half, so that could have been a loss for them. Now, 43 points is a ton of points, though. I mean, I can imagine if UTEP gets a single score, that would keep Texas from being able to cover that. Now, of course, Texas is going to win this game. There's absolutely no question in my mind there. Texas wins this. But 43 points is so many points. I think they cover, but I'm very, very hesitant on that one. But if I had to choose, I would say that they cover that 43 points. See, then 8 o'clock, we have Western Kentucky at Louisville on the ACC network. Had some good wins last year. Beat Arkansas. That was a really big win for them. Their quarterback was a former Arkansas player, coming back, getting a big win over his previous team. They went 8-4, 6-2 overall. Louisville, 7-5, 5-3 overall. They're an 11.5-point favorite. And even though I think Western Kentucky is a pretty good team, I have Louisville winning this game. I have them covering. So these teams played last year, and Western Kentucky was a decent team last year. Louisville won by 17. And I think 11.5 is I feel fairly comfortable with them winning probably by 2 touchdowns again here. Also at 8 o'clock, we have Houston Baptist at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is going to win that game. Didn't even see a point spread on it. Texas Tech, not a great team these past couple of years. They were one of those teams that were scoring 50 points every year, and then of course their head coach went to the NFL and is now tearing it up in the NFL, and they just haven't quite been as good since he left. 4-8 last year, 2-7 in the Big 12, but yeah, they're going to win that game. Didn't see a point spread. They're going to win it easily. Last game, Coastal Carolina at Kansas. 10 o'clock, Fox Sports 1. Kansas is one of those teams that I'm enjoying watching. They're in a rebuild. Of course, brought in Les Miles out of retirement to take over the program. They were one of those teams that was continually terrible, winning 1 or no games every year. Went 3-9 last year, 1-8. Almost beat Texas last year, had a really, really close game with Texas. Seemed like they were getting better as the season went on. Kansas is a 7-point favorite here. Interesting, Coastal Carolina, according to the Football Power Index, is the favorite to win. And these two teams played last year, and Coastal Carolina won. I think it was 12-7. Very close game, very, very low scoring game. I think Kansas gets the win this time. I have trouble giving them a win by 7 points. So I have them winning but not covering. That's what I got for this week as far as the games go. Again, if you enjoyed this video, you know how YouTube works. Click the like button. If you want to see more of these, subscribe to the channel. And I will see you next week for week 3.